Thank you, my patrons on Patreon. You've been supporting me. This is a 1 year anniversary of me having launched my project through Patreon, um, and it's really helped. It's really helped me to give me confidence that what I'm doing people find interesting, and the financial support helps because this I'm not working full time. This is what I'm doing. Very good news. Good news for you guys. I'm no longer a volunteer haplogroup administrator for my haplogroup on Family Tree DNA. I decided to step down because I don't like the $99 BAM file download fee that they have just started. Um, they see WIFIL as a competitor because it enables their real competitors who sell DNA tests to have an analysis, and it's a good quality analysis because it compares uh, the Y-DNA SNP test, next generation test, or whole genome sequence test of people that have tested from any testing company. And they also put ancient samples on their tree and also samples from scientific studies. And it's extremely important for my haplogroup because a lot of the people in my haplogroup don't live in places that pay for a lot of family tree DNA tests. So especially the Indian branch of JM241, South Asian, West and Persian Gulf branch of JM241, it's almost half the people on there are from scientific studies. Uh, yeah, so it's good news for you guys because now I'm not going to be spending as much time as I have been spending uh, on that, and I'm going to be focusing it on PhyloGeographer, to which I've already made a number of substantial improvements within the past few weeks. Uh, I just released new update. Calculations have been migrations have been recalculated based on the most recent WIFIL tree from a few days ago, December 5th, I think. Uh, and I've made changes to the algorithm. It should result in migrations that make more sense. And you can also see the WIFIL samples by clicking a button, and then you can look and see why was the path calculated as it was calculated. Oh, well, this is where all the samples are. And if you think it doesn't make sense, then tell me because this feedback is essential. Within a day, oh no, within hours of me having posted on a J2 haplogroup forum on Facebook of this new release of PhyloGeographer, new migrations calculated, a man responded to me and he said, "Hey, this doesn't make sense. JL24 going to migrating from Egypt to Italy." And so at first I looked at the samples and I thought about it for a while, and I realized there's something that I can do to improve the algorithm so that this type of mistake won't happen. Uh, it's as everyone should understand, PhyloGeographer is not a crystal ball. We're dealing with we're dealing with few numbers of geographically distant samples from one another, and many places in the world people are not taking DNA tests. So to assume that a data-driven method is going to be 100% correct all the time for every SNP, for every subclade, is a wrong assumption. Um, but it's a good faith effort and it's objective, and I'm making improvements. And so I've already identified two things that I can do. One of them is I think um, I have a outlier ignoring part of my algorithm, so that if one subclade is very far from all the other siblings, this subclade's position that's very far from all the others is not used in the initial averaging that tries to make an initial attempt of, well, where was maybe the ancestor of all these siblings from? It will be ignored in that calculation. But it should not be ignored if that outlier is actually very close to one of the upstream ancestor locations that have been computed. And it's a common sense thing. It's just something that I hadn't thought about adding yet. So I'm going to add that. And anyway, continue to send me feedback. I'm going to have a poll for the first time. I got the idea by watching a Patreon, reading a Patreon post. Everyone who's a $5 per month member, patron, will be able to vote on which features I will implement in December. Everyone who's a $5 patron by Christmas will be able to vote. I will give a list of the different features that I'm planning on doing. One of them is co-migrations. That means you can find somehow through an interface, I haven't yet thought about how to do it, which members of different haplogroups are calculated to have migrated near each other at near the same time. Mathematically, it's a straightforward thing. It's just a matter of me writing the code to do this. And then coming up with an interface that decides what is significant enough. How long do they need to be traveling together in order to be flagged? How close do they need to be? Anyway, that's a major thing I've been thinking about doing for a long time. And other improvements, considering rather than computing a single spot and saying this is where the ancestor of this subclade was born, I could come up with having the spot where the ancestor was born, but then also maybe drawing a line for where he may have migrated during his lifetime. This is something that the current implementation of PhyloGeographer does not do, and this could be something. This could be useful. And I mean, even better would be if it's not just a straight line, but can just curve around. But let's start with the basics first. What are the other ideas that I had? Anyway, I'm going to make a list of these, and you'll be able to vote. Oh, another one. Maybe a reliability or confidence score of how accurate or how reliable I think whatever subclade you're looking at when you're looking on the map, how accurate I think, how reliable I think PhyloGeographer may be for that subclade. And I can already do this because I've coded something that measures geographic consistency in a subclade, in a clade, by looking at how far apart, what's the average distance from one sample to the other in a subclade, or how far apart its children clades have been computed to be from one another on average. And I've already had this calculated. I'm just not pushing it up to the user interface. Instead, it's being calculated and used in the migrations. That's one of the reasons, it's one of the improvements to the migration paths that I have recently released. Thank you very much for your support.